I want to thank you all so much for coming this morning. Good morning and a very warm welcome. A very special welcome to a number of people who are joining us today. First of all, Mayor Marty Walsh, Senator Linda Dorsina-Forey, Representative Dan Cullinane, City Councilor Ayanna Presley. Is Ayanna here? Yes. Oh, hi. Didn't see you, sorry. And City Councilor Andrea Campbell's aide, Cheryl Harding. Andrea is about to have a baby, we understand, so that's very exciting. City Councilor Frank Baker, and City President, Council President Michelle Wu's aide, Gary Weber, Councilor at Large Ayanna Presley, Councilor at Large Mike Flaherty, Dave Cotter, the liaison for Dorchester for this area, for the mayor, thank you, and Representative Russell Holmes' aide, Davin Edwards. So thank you all, and there are a number of other officials here, and we thank you so much for joining us today. Today we celebrate and honor a visionary Bostonian, and in 1874, that's 1874, not 1974, Cordelia Harmon wrote the following summary after years of visiting people in the community who were not living well, either couldn't live in the beginning of the hospital's era or living well at home. And here is what she said. There seems to be one remedy for the evil, to tear down the rookeries, and rookeries are like tenements, in which the greater number of these people live, and let there be proper supervision for the construction of whatever buildings may be erected in the future. I give you this bit of history for those of you who have a dream. As Winston Churchill did say, never, 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 and he did say that 3 times, never, never, never give up. 20 years ago, I met a man by the name of Dave Hatch, who is with us today, and Dave is right there in the back. Dave was living at home and in a scooter, and one of the first meetings that I attended when I came on board to the Boston home was to meet Dave and to hear of his advocacy for housing for disabilities. Dave, I never forgot your determination, and I am so pleased that your dream will now become a reality and that you are here to enjoy it. So thank you very much. The interest already expressed from prospective tenants confirms the need for Harmon Apartments. Harmon Apartments is unique for its combination of affordability, accessibility, plus integrated technology and specialized support services. We expect that tenants, because of this combination of services, will be able to engage fully in the Dorchester community as well as Boston and beyond. There are many, many organizations and individuals who share the values of the developers, the Boston Home and Affirmative Investments, whose combined efforts resulted in this celebration today. First is Mayor Walsh and so many of his departments, many of whom are here represented today. A special thank you to Sheila Dillon and her staff and her team at DND. And where's Sheila? Thank you, Sheila. Crystal Carnegie and her team at DHCD for your guidance and the guidance of your staff as well as funding. So thank you very much. And all of our funders, and I think we have representatives from all of them here today, certainly Mass Housing, Capital One Bank, City of Boston, and the National Equity Fund. We couldn't have done it without you, so we thank you very much. And finally, the trustees of the Boston Home. Thank you for their vision, commitment, and financing. And this is part of a legacy of 135 years of trustees who have made big decisions and bold decisions and the right decisions. So I applaud your decision to take this opportunity to help an increasing number of people. And our board chair is with us today, Randy Hawthorne. Thank you, Randy. I have met such wonderfully smart, dedicated people along this journey. Our attorneys, construction managers, architects, neighbors, advocates, and friends. Thank you all. This has really been a tremendously team effort, and of course, we're not ready yet. And thank you to the Boston Home staff who made this event possible. You've worked really hard. You've thought of everything, and thank you so much. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce Mayor Walsh, who has been a caring friend of the Boston Home for as long as I can remember, going back to the days when he was a state rep. One example of how much he cares and how he can get things done is one day he was over here and residents were telling him about the intersection of Gallivan Boulevard and Dorchester Ave and how very difficult it is for everyone to get across that street. Within a short period of time, he mobilized his staff, worked with the state as well to make it a much safer intersection. And so for that and everything else, we thank you very much, Marty. Mayor Walsh is the city's chief champion for improving quality of life for all residents. He understands that fully engaging in this great city means that housing must meet the needs of all residents. And he's been an advocate for affordable housing. And we continue, and certainly now more than ever, we need that strong voice of yours. And we thank you for that. Thank you for your leadership, your friendship, and determination to make Harmon Apartments a reality. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Marva. I want to first of all thank everyone at the Boston Home for letting us be here with you today and sharing this special day. I want to thank Marva, the staff, the board. This truly is a special place, and I'll talk about the special place in a moment. But thank you. I want to thank Sheila Dillon and her team at the Department of Neighborhood Development in housing for all the great work they do. I want to particularly give a shout out to Bob Jones from D&D. Thank you, Bob, for your great work here. And I want to give a shout out to John Campbell from the Boston Planning and Development Agency, who did a lot of work on this project. Knowing that this project meant a lot to me, and I truly appreciate it. The elected officials that are here, State Representative Danny Cullinane. Danny worked with me as an aide in the office when we'd come here and do the lobbying days, and now he's the state representative here, and it's great to have such a strong advocate for Dorchester and for the Boston Home, and thank you, Dan, for your great work. Senator Forey, who was the state rep actually here before. I didn't actually have this neighborhood when I was the rep, but Senator Forey did, and you know, we come in and do a lot of things in here together working, and I want to thank her as well for her strong advocacy as a state senator in the Senate. Thank you, Senator. Councilor Presley, who's in a butter, literally lives right down the street, and all the abutters, thank you. I know this process wasn't easy. This process had a little challenges, I guess, if you will, a few obstacles to overcome. And I want to thank you, the neighborhood, for working to get to this point today. And truly, without you, we wouldn't be here today. So I want to thank the community and Councilor Presley as well, one of our close abutters and a strong supporter. Thank you. All the folks behind me, I'm not going to go into everyone else. I'm not going to go into everyone behind me and talk about them, but thank you for your work. City Councilor Frank Baker, whose district we're in. Thank you, Councilor Frank Baker, and obviously Andrea Campbell, but Frank also understands the importance of what goes on here. And there's one other guy that I want to introduce. When Marva talked about me being involved 20 years ago as a state representative, and I was, but there was a state representative before me that represented the district, the 13th Suffolk District, and his passion and advocacy was around disabilities and helping people that needed help, and he was a champion for them, and he was a champion for the Boston Home, and still continues to be a strong voice for the Boston Home, and that's State Representative Jim Brett. I want to thank you, Jim, for all of that, and you know, in Boston, and Sheila Dillon and her team is doing this. We're fighting to make sure Boston is a place where everyone has a home, and that's something that's really important for us. A home that they can afford, a home that's accessible, and a home that's part of a community. That's why we stand firmly behind this project here today. The city is drawing from two different sources to help make it happen: the D&D and the Neighborhood Housing Trust. We've gotten all the permits, I think, have been taken care of, and the Boston home is providing, once again, that it's one of the best of its kind in the nation. And we're lucky to have the Boston home in the city of Boston. We should clap on that one. A couple of weeks ago, we announced new targets and new strategies to create accessible housing. And all of us were talking about it. According to the U.S. Census, nearly 12% of Boston's population has a disability. They contribute enormously to our city despite facing obstacles. And if you haven't had a chance here today, if you're a neighbor, you live in this neighborhood, and you haven't been inside the Boston home, go into the Boston home. Go in and walk around and talk to the residents that are here. You're incredible people. And I want to thank you because you don't give up. You continue to move forward, whether it's your artwork or you're grilling me when I went in for questions or on issues. I want to thank you because the people living here are contributing to our city. And that's why it's our duty to ensure greater equity. So we're going to increase housing accessibility and housing production. We're going to improve outreach and marketing to make sure people know what their options are throughout the entire city. We're going to increase support services to ensure new housing meets our residents' needs. This project shows how we can meet those goals by working together. Equity has become a core value here in the city of Boston. Many of us receive the support and advantages every day that are tailored exactly to our needs. We don't notice them because we never have been without them. But those who have gone without equity in the past have lived a very different reality. It's not the reality we want in our city anymore. We want to make sure that people have true equity. Everyone should have the supports tailored to their needs that allow them the same opportunities to thrive. So right now, it takes a lot of teamwork to move this building like this forward. It's at the foundation. It's about simple fairness. Again, I want to thank the Boston Home for your great work. I want to thank you for your vision here today. I want to thank you for taking a parking lot and a gate that's never really been open except for on Memorial Day and turning it into homes. Thank you, Martha. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Our next speaker is Senator Linda Gesina Forey. She represents the 1st Suffolk District. Is that right? Okay, there you go. And like the mayor, has been a friend of the Boston home from her early days, again, in the House of Representatives. Recognized as a leader, she was recently appointed Assistant Majority Whip, and importantly, she is Vice Chair on Housing and Intergovernmental Affairs. So what we're doing here is really right up her alley. She has been a supporter right from the early concept. I remember actually meeting with you in the early days when it was just a picture and a vision that we had. We thank you for all of your support now and continuing into the future. So we're very blessed to have you as a leader in this community.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This is a wonderful and a blessed day, isn't it? That we are here today for this incredible, incredible groundbreaking. But, you know, I have to bring up Marva because there is a leader at the Boston home that brought the vision to make this happen and led this incredible place where folks are able to thrive and grow and their families are able to come and share time with them right here at the Boston home. So I want us to put our hands together for Marva, for her work. Come on. And you know Marva, but she is a hard worker. And it took a lot to get this project done. But it was understanding the importance of having a place for someone to call home. You know, making sure that Margaret and David and Steve and Kathy and other folks have an opportunity. And the Boston home is so special because it is one of 6 in the country, right? The only one in New England. We have 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and people are coming from all over to Dorchester, calling this place their home. And so I am grateful to represent this incredible place, to work with our mayor, who has been a champion before becoming mayor of our city councilor, Frank Baker, city councilor, Ayanna Presley. And, you know, when we do this job, and there's an incredible delegation in Dorchester, but we always remember those who came before us, who laid the groundwork. And he was mentioned before, but in the 80s, when it was difficult to come by funding for the Boston home, we had a champion among us, and that's the Honorable James Brett right here, who fought hard to make sure that the Boston home continued to thrive. And so it is just wonderful to be here with all of you, but also to celebrate the public and private partnership that's going to make this development happen, right? Because it can't happen by itself on the public side. But, you know, there's private funding as well in this project. I want to thank Undersecretary Crystal Carnegie and the Baker administration for understanding and realizing the importance of having a place that we're breaking ground on today, because they know the importance of the Boston home. They know the importance of our residents, that as they thrive as professionals, you know, there's afflictions that happen, right, in terms of MS and all these neurological pieces that happens to us as individuals. But we are saying to our folks, our families, and our friends that if you don't have the capacity to do it at home, there is a place in Dorchester called the Boston home, but there's going to be another place built right here to give folks an opportunity to continue to thrive and to grow and to be amazing, incredible individuals. I see Tim Sullivan here from Mass Housing. Thank you. I see so many folks who made this development happen. But, you know, in the end, it's about how do we stay in it together? How do we be responsible and present for our loved ones? How do we be present for people we may not even know? And I want to thank the neighbors who came to meetings, because this was a difficult process. And folks sometimes felt, and Representative Dan Cullinane, my partner, in terms of the meetings that we had in this community, to say we have to stand up and be present for the Boston home. We have to stand up and say it's important that we create sustainable housing, and housing for folks who may not be able to do it on their own. And so I want to thank the neighbors, because they came to the table after long discussions, right? But they came to the table and working with Marva and her team and the architects and the designers, you know, they set this project back, right? They listened to the community here. They set the development back from the street to say, listen, there's not going to be a visual impact on you, but we need to create housing for our people. We need to create housing not just for Dorchester and Boston folks, but folks from all over our great Commonwealth, because we are responsible for one another. And this is a blessed day, because we are breaking ground at something that's going to be beautiful, something that's going to be a place for future families to come. Thank you all, and God bless.
Before I introduce Representative Dan Cullinane, I missed one thank you on my list, and that is early and very active support from the Greater New England chapter of the MS Society. So thank you all very much, and you're here today. Senator Forey really talked about the teamwork and working very actively with the community and bringing together, and the complexity of this project. And really one of the leads in all of that was our very own Representative Dan Cullinane. So Dan, we thank you very much for that all support all through these years. So thank you, and please come up.
Thank you so much. This truly is a beautiful day to be part of this incredible ceremony. And I just want to say briefly that this truly is a product of the neighborhood, by the neighborhood. And I want to thank Philippe, who's the architect on this project, who lives very close by, to truly make this a product of the neighborhood, by the neighborhood. And Marva, you've just done incredible work here. This has been inspiring. This has been an adventure. But we're here now, and this is such a special day. And I want to thank your right hand, Mary Geary, for all of her work throughout this entire project. And having the opportunity to serve on Mayor Walsh's housing task force from right after the inauguration to now, I just want to say this mayor's vision for an inclusive Boston, a Boston that everyone can call home, that everyone can afford, has been nothing short of inspiring, Mayor. And you deserve all the credit in the world for making sure that we're not just looking at affordable housing, but affordable housing for everyone. And you deserve so much credit for that, and it's been an honor to be part of that. And as Senator Forey said, this has been a long journey, but this has been something where your elected delegation from city council to state rep to state senator, all across the board, have stood in lockstep with one another in a unified voice that says we stand with the Boston home, that we stand with who the Boston home serves, not just right now, but well into the future. Your legacy is awe-inspiring. The people who showcase their talents each and every day, regardless of what physical disability one may have, they are showing that they are excelling across the board, and you deserve so much credit for the stories and memories and legacy you have built here. So thank you so much for your leadership. And briefly, this past year and continuing going forward, I have an intern named Sam Pastor that's serving in my office. Sam's from Swampscott, and he has multiple sclerosis, and he is in an electric wheelchair, and he's interned every week since the beginning of this year in the State House. And one thing that we often talk about, he's young, he serves on the Swampscott Disability Council. He talks about how much the future is better for folks like him because of the leadership and the path that's been paved by everyone that's come before us. And the Boston home holds a special place in making sure that everyone, regardless of their disability physically, has an opportunity to excel at their skills, to have an awesome experience. And now that today, when we put the shovels in the ground, for the first time in a very long time, a lot of people are going to have a place to call home, and I hope that legacy continues to build. So thank you so much. It's an honor to be part of today.
Thank you, Dan. Our next speaker is Crystal Carnegie. She's the Undersecretary of the Department of Housing and Community Development, a very key department in terms of the process for housing in the Commonwealth. She and her team have been provided incredible guidance and funding, and they taught us a lot, and they were with us every step of the way. So, Crystal, we thank you very much.
I usually do these things kind of on the fly, and I talk about community because my previous life was sort of what Marva did, but for a community development corporation, and put these deals together. And none of these things happen simply, particularly in the city of Boston, and particularly under leadership that wants to make sure that in the long term, the folks who live here are really embraced and part of the community. And without continual community input, when you see people on the street and you know you live here, you get a sense of pride too. And you get a sense of like, those are my neighbors, and you get to feel good about that. But those can be, I remember someone saying to me, community process in Boston is a contact sport. And so none of these things happen easy, nor should they, right? Like, you shouldn't change the landscape in a community, in any place for 50, 60 years without some process. And so it's very nice to be from Boston and to have our mayor, our delegation represent me and be part of that work. And so being here is very, very special and meaningful. When people talk about how the mayor has been an advocate of the project, usually people say that about elected officials, and it's not always true, but it was true. So when I took this job, one of the first things he sort of like cornered me about was like, in a very nice way, was about, so what's up with Harmon Apartments? And I was still trying to figure out where the bathroom was, and so I didn't really have the right answer, but he was a continual fierce advocate for this project, and so we are all fortunate and to have him as a mayor and have this delegation as great sponsors. So usually I don't usually talk about money because everybody else does, but these things, aside from community support, don't happen without money. And so in addition to the money that the state put in, the city put in, here the Boston Home is also putting its own money. And so I love people who like put their money where their mouths are, right? Who spend money and have it represent what their values are. And it's incredible when you get those kind of sponsors and how important this is to this board to be able to say, you know, like we've got this money and we want our own skin in the game, so to speak. And so congratulations to you all, not just for the work and not just for going through the process, but sort of just for being a leader and making sure that you're spending your money and it represents investment in your mission over the long term. And so one way that we're going to make sure that these kind of things continue to happen across the city is the governor has put together a housing bond bill to reflect investments in making sure that these kind of projects happen across the Commonwealth. And so we want to ask all of our elected officials here today, Senator Forey and others, to support that bond bill so that we can continue to come to ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings like today and make sure that folks across the Commonwealth all have a great place to live and be part of our community. Thank you.
We've talked a lot about advocacy, and our next speaker, Carol Steinberg, is an attorney, a writer, and an advocate for people with disabilities. And so, Carol, we thank you very much for joining us today, and I think this will work. Yes, it does. You can just whatever's comfortable.
Thank you very much, Marva. So I'm so happy to be here with the mayor and Senator Gesina and Secretary Carnegie, and everybody else whose efforts have brought us here today. We're celebrating this amazing 36-unit development of affordable and 100% accessible housing. Just 2 weeks after the 27th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, by the way. This is housing provided to people with disabilities, spearheaded by the Boston Home, which has been around taking care of people with diseases like mine for 135 years, taking wonderful care of those people. I'm an attorney that practices in the Boston area and a wheelchair user for the past 13 years due to multiple sclerosis. My MS was diagnosed in 1995 when I was 41 years old. I've been a longtime member of the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, the board that has been making buildings and facilities in the state accessible to people with disabilities since 1968. Since I left the board, I've consulted with people with disabilities as well as businesses and developers on compliance with accessibility rules. In my law practice, I represent people who are injured or sick, as well as people seeking reasonable accommodations to their disabilities in their employment and in their housing pursuant to the ADA. I'm past president of the board of the Disability Law Center and a member of the Government Relations Committee of the Massachusetts Multiple Sclerosis Society. So I am a strong advocate for legislative and other efforts to facilitate more affordable and accessible housing in the Boston area. both because I see the need all the time in my community of people with disabilities, and because I recognize this need in my own life. I've been a resident of Boston for over 30 years. I'm very lucky. With the help of my supportive husband and 2 grown daughters who live nearby, I am able to live a very independent and full life. But I know all too well that my support system could change at the drop of a hat. I could be alone and in need of a place to live where I could be both safe and independent. My father also had MS, diagnosed at the age of 40. When he was around my age, in his 60s, my parents got divorced. He could not take care of himself alone in their 2-story inaccessible home. The only place he could turn to that would be safe for him was an institution. He ended up living in a nursing home for the last 20 years of his life. If only apartments that were 100% accessible, like those we celebrate today, existed for my dad in Connecticut, he might not have had to be cared for in an institutional setting. I am now hopeful that such housing will exist for me should I need it in the future. 2 years ago, my husband and I went to Barcelona, which is really an incredibly accessible city. There, even ancient ruins and old buildings have elevators, and the cobblestones that wind through the quaint neighborhoods have been replaced with flat paving. Still quaint, but an easy ride. And most relevant to today's celebration, at the end of our trip, our tour guide, a woman who has an accessible travel company called Barcelona Enabled, showed us a large apartment building that she was very proud of. All apartments were fully accessible. We asked, why doesn't Boston have that? It's accessible in so many ways, thanks to the efforts of the mayor and his commission for people with disabilities, and it's getting better and better thanks to those efforts. And now we have we will have a large apartment building with 100% accessibility. And just thanks to the efforts of everyone that's here today. For people who use wheelchairs and other mobility devices, finding housing with even the basic accessibility features, like an entrance with no steps, ranges from daunting to impossible. In addition, the affordability gap for people with disabilities has exponentially worsened in recent years. Studies show that over 4.8 million non-institutionalized Americans with disabilities who rely on federal SSI have incomes less than $8,700 per year, low enough to be priced out of every rental housing market in the nation. There's a tremendous need in Boston for stable and secure housing targeted to persons with limited income and those with disabilities. Harmon Apartments, by serving both of these constituencies, directly addresses these housing needs in a unique, attractive, and well-considered manner. Being part of the community and living as independently as possible are among the most important values and goals shared by people with disabilities and their families. A home of one's home, either rented or owned, is the cornerstone of independence for people with disabilities. The Boston home, yet people with intellectual, developmental, and physical disabilities face a crisis in the availability of decent, safe, affordable, and accessible housing. The Boston home and its development team, along with the City of Boston and the state, have today made a substantial contribution to easing that crisis. I thank you so much for that.
Carol, thank you very much. Crystal spoke about funding, and there are multiple funders for this project, and key to putting all the deal together was Capital One Community Finance, and I'm very pleased to introduce Mark Migliozzi, who is representing Capital One and has been with us all step of the way, coordinating his side of this very exciting project. Mark?
Hello, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you, Marva, for having us here. Very honored and pleased to be a part of this project. As you've heard everyone else say, it's really special. Also honored to be in such distinguished company, Mayor Walsh, Senator Forey, Undersecretary Carnegie, Representative Cullinan, and others. And there were a lot of people who really worked hard to make this project come together. So first of all, congratulations to the Boston home. I think it's a very exciting day for Dorchester. It's an exciting day for Boston. You know, a lot of people did work very hard to make this a reality today. So I would like to just say that Boston has become more and more a very important market for Capital One, not only for the community finance team, we also have a multifamily finance team and others. And as we like to say at Capital One, we are investing for good. So kind of taking that two ways, investing in good works, like what we're here celebrating today, but also we're in it for the long term. We're here for good. So really just excited to be a part of these, a key funder in these types of projects. And normally what we like to say is we're committed to quality, affordable housing. And today I get to add a little bit of extra flavor to that, in that not only is this quality, affordable housing, but also accessible housing in creating homes for people who really need it. Probably about a year ago now, Deb Burkhart from the National Equity Fund approached me with this project, and I knew right away that Capital One had to be a part of it. On a personal note, I have an older brother who has multiple sclerosis. He was diagnosed when he was 18. He clung tenaciously to his cane and to his independence, and finally, a few years ago, succumbed to being confined in a wheelchair, like a lot of the folks here today. And so with him in mind, I really wanted to be involved in this project and make sure that Harmon Apartments got financed and will eventually get built. So very, you know, just pleased and moved to be here. It's a very special development, and I believe it's actually one of the first. So Boston is a city of firsts, and it's exciting to be here for the first development of this type here. And of course, as the banker in the bunch, I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the funding and go into a few numbers. I won't bore you all too much, but there's a construction loan of $7.3 million provided by Capital One, as well as a permanent loan of $1.2 million. State and federal tax credit equity of $8.9 million. City and state funding of $3.8 million. Thank you to all of our partners at the city and state. And of course, the Boston home putting its own money in, $2.8 million. So that's a real commitment to this project. And Capital One is also providing a $200,000 social purpose grant to enhance services at the property to again underscore our commitment to it. So just a quick thank you to all of our partners, the folks I mentioned, everyone sitting behind me here. Of course, my colleagues at Capital One, Gary Ollier and CC Crocker and Jeremy Levkoff. The folks at Affirmative Investments, of course, David Ennis, Tara Mizrahi and Jennifer Colosi, thank you so much for all your hard work. National Equity Fund, Tony Thiesing, did an amazing job. I could call him anytime when he was walking his dog or at home, and he would actually pick up the phone. David Ray, Deb Burkhart, and Rena Bramlett as well, and all the good folks at DND and DHCD. So thank you very much. Congratulations, Marva. Glad to be a part of this project.
Thank you very much, Mark. Now I can't think of a better closer. Our co-developer is David Ennis, who is the president of Affirmative Investments, and along with his partner, Tara Mizrahi, have really provided us with the expertise the fortitude to move on. They've been with us every step of the way. Frankly, we could not have done this project without their commitment, their leadership, and their belief that this really could get done. So, David, with that, we want to introduce you to the group and, again, officially thank you.
Thank you, Marva. I'll try to be fairly brief, since you're probably getting tired, and the politicians are more eloquent than I am. But we at Affirmative are really, really proud to be part of this project. We do a lot of development, a lot of housing development. It's mostly affordable. That's our mission for the last 30 years. And every project is special, of course. Every project is our most important project. But this one has been sort of unusual because it's been so challenging, but also different. I mean, we sort of, as a developer, we're on the other side of, not on the other side of the ADA rules, but the ADA rules are sort of, they're sort of a pain for us. It's like, always have to think about them, and we're afraid of the Architectural Access Board. And in this project, we're on the other side of the table, and it feels really good. Feels like the right place to be. So I would like to say that we're creating Harmon Apartments to be in the community. And Senator Forey mentioned the fact that we have nice trees here, but we're on Dorchester Avenue. We want to connect people who are still part of the community to Ashmont, to Dorchester Ave, to the buses, to the stores, to the restaurants. There were a lot of challenges to make this work, and a lot of rules that we have to work within and sometimes maybe without, but we try our best. And there's some real champions. The first one champion is Marva, Fran, and the board of the Boston Home, whose vision and whose commitment never wavered. It's amazing. And they're taking what is a 19th century institution into the 21st century. And the goal is to create a home that doesn't separate people with disabilities, but lets them play an important role in the world, stay in the community. Secondly, I'd like to thank Senator Forey and Representative Cullinane, who really made a huge difference in helping us reach consensus with the community. It was actually terrific. Debbie Burkhart from the National Equity Fund is a long-term friend, and she works on special needs issues. And she gave us a lot of guidance, a lot of examples from other states of how to make things work, how to develop fair housing policies that work within the rules. She was really invaluable. Capital One was a terrific partner, our investor and our lender. They made a commitment before the election, and it was a really good offer. And the election came, and a lot of other people changed their offers. And Capital One stuck by their commitment, and they've been really good partners with us. Then I'd like to thank Crystal and Sheila and DHCD and D&D and all of our friends who really worked with us. I mean, this was not an easy project, and they really believed in the project also with us. I'd also like to thank Tara Mizrahi and Jennifer Kaloji from Affirmative, who are making sure this project gets built, which is great. And lastly, I'd like to thank the mayor, Mayor Walsh, whose leadership really helped us challenge a lot of difficult situations. Everyone stands up here and thanks the mayor, at the meetings, but the mayor's been a real friend here at the Boston Home for a long time. And without his leadership, without his backing this project, we wouldn't be here today. And I really mean that. So Harmon Apartments is a joint project of us temporarily able people and the disabled community to create an environment in which people can thrive and maintain their dignity. In this climate of political meanness, Harmon Apartments is a beachhead of humane common sense. My father has an expression which is kind of dumb, but sort of profound, which is, when in doubt, do the right thing. Harmon Apartments is the right thing.
We've come to the end of our program. Thank you all for joining us today on this happy occasion. We have some refreshments, and please hang around as long as you like. And again, a big thank you to everyone who is here today and those who aren't here but who helped us. Thank you.
On three, we'll throw. 1, 2, 3.
Good. Great.